We're here at CES 2024 in the ASUS booth. Check out their brand new gaming monitors that, holy crap, look at how pretty she is. This right here is the PG39WCDM. We're going to look at it because ASUS sponsored this video. Almost forgot the disclosure there, but I'm not going to forget how freaking good this thing looks. So this is an OLED panel. It's made by LG and it goes up to 1,300 nits. Now that is only for 3% of the display, but that is pretty typical of this or QD or even some of the less honest LCDs. So you get those like pinpoints that are so freaking bright on an OLED, but you also get those just absolutely perfect blacks. Oh my God. These things look some nice. Now this one specifically is 39 inches. There will also be a 34-inch version. That's essentially the same thing, but a tiny bit smaller, as I'm sure you have assumed. And it has up to a 240 hertz refresh rate. So let's come in here. We've got a bit of Rocket League booted up. I really like Rocket League because it's such a vibrant game and it allows us to really see just how bad I am for one, and also just how nice this thing looks. The amount of contrast on this thing is just fantastic. I feel like Rocket League wasn't showing off the intensity of this display that I was looking for. One moment here. Here we go. Now, you obviously cannot tell how pretty this is because you're looking at it through an FX3, through YouTube, and then through your monitor. But just like the glints on Buddy's helmet here are so impressive, and like the contrast between him and like his cape, oh, it is very nice. Now, what you might be thinking is that like this fire rate here, that's really bright, and making things really bright consumes a lot of power, and a lot of power creates a lot of heat, and OLED displays really do not like that. If they are getting too bright, they will burn in and they will just start looking bad and die eventually, which is why ASUS has their brand new heatsink assembly. Now, we talked to them for an hour to try and get permission to take one of these apart. They wouldn't. I am very sad about it, so we'll have to in the future. I was trying to find some marketing BS name for it, but instead it's just the highly efficient custom heatsink for effective heat management. But what that is doing is that on the scaler and on the power delivery, they have heatsinks on there to make sure that no more than about 60 degrees Celsius is able to make its way to the panel. They also have a massive graphene sheet across the whole thing to make sure that, you know, she's staying just real nice and cool. Maybe, you know, that one's just 240 hertz. You don't want that, you want 480. This right here is the PG39WCDM. It's 1440p, 480 hertz, and holy heck, Buddy in the little spaceship, he is completely clear all the way across. Like at 240, he looks pretty good. But the motion clarity of this guy is absolutely incredible, and it can be even better. ASUS says they're going to have black frame insertion on these panels, although they're pretty cagey about the details. And you might be wondering, why do you want that? So in the past, black frame insertion was used because the pixels were pretty darn slow. They were right laggy, so they would strobe the backlight so that as the pixel is like, you know, changing from one color to the next, you wouldn't see that and you wouldn't get those smearing effects. These days though, that isn't a problem because OLED pixels are just, they're right fast. The problem though is your own eyeballs and just their analog image persistence. So if there's like an image on the display and it moves, your brain and eyes kind of think of it as one thing. Whereas if you put a little black frame in there, your eyes are like, oh, it's new information every single time that it does that, and it can look absolutely fantastic. Now these do support FreeSync, although they didn't say if it supports G-Sync because it is currently going through validation, although it might be safe to say it will in the future, but we're not going to look at that. Now in the past, a lot of the time if you have a 480 hertz panel, it will look really good in games and pretty poo-poo in everything else because they will sacrifice everything for that pixel response time. Not the case here. This thing also has the 1300 nits peak brightness, 99% DCI-P3 coverage, and it just looks very, very nice. ASUS said that for this generation, they had to completely redo how they calibrate their OLED panels because, for one, It's just very different than LCD, but also these things are so hecking bright, they had to just, well, they don't have very many details about it because, you know, these aren't out yet. They don't want to give away too much. But according to my eyeballs, they did a very good job. But maybe you're super indecisive. Do I want 480 hertz? Do I want 240 hertz? No, you can have both right here. So right here is the PG39WCDM. This also has that LG panel that is OLED 1300 nits, but this one right here can be either 4K 240 hertz or Full HD 480 hertz. There also will be the ROG PG39WCDM, so same thing except this one has a P, but that one right there will have a QD OLED and it will be only up to 1000 nits, and like, you know, Samsung's panels, are they even that good anymore now that we have these OLEDs? I was hoping the ASUS reps would get mad at me, but they, I guess, just agree that the LG ones are really fantastic. Technically, in every way, this panel is better. Now, the Samsung will have the advantage that it's going to be launching this month, which will be sooner than the rest of them, which will be more like late Q1, maybe early Q2, somewhere around there. And it kind of shows. So this guy right here currently does not have the working dual mode. So unfortunately, we cannot play around with that. But I know what a lot of you guys might be thinking is just like, why? Why would you want those? Why not just pick one? And they basically said, well, we can do 480 hertz, but you cannot even drive that. Even with like a 4080, 4K 480 hertz, it is not going to happen. So if you do some esports titles and then like sometimes do content creation or just like want to look at text that's really nice and clear, that's where that 4K is really going to come into its own. Now, one pain point of monitors is always just using a little OSD in the monitor, huge pain in the arse. So ASUS has, well, they've had this before, many companies have had this before, but they have a new and improved OSD within Windows. This allows you to do fun things like change the brightness. Will it actually work? Oh my God, it actually worked. This is all pre-production, so I wasn't 100% sure. But almost more importantly is their OLED care stuff. So of course, LG within the firmware of the panel makes sure that it's not going to burn in too much. But if you want to just be a little bit more careful, you can come in here. They've got Display Saver, adjusting logo brightness to make sure that just like you don't have your Windows logo end up on your screen at all times. Or you can manually force the pixel cleaning. What happens if I click that? Don't do it? Pixel cleaning fail. Well, it tried. Now, we don't have final pricing for any of these, although they did say that the 34-inch version of the PG39WCDM is going to be around $1,300, which, when you compare it to something like the QD OLED monitors that exist right now, is pretty good, but it firmly puts you in like Nicholas Plouffe ultra display nerd territory and not sort of more like normie display territory. And I was kind of wondering, like, normally you get this new ultra, like, yeah, it's the most beautiful display you can get, but we haven't really seen OLEDs trickle down at all. And what once was premium like 3 years ago, it doesn't exist as a mid-level device these days. You just keep on refreshing the most expensive of those. And ASUS was saying that there is a good reason for that, and that's mostly just that OLED customers do not want to compromise on the image quality at all. And there have been other companies that had less bright OLED panels that were returned to them because the customers were not very happy with the brightness and the performance compared to their old LCD ones. So they could do stuff like remove that really expensive custom heatsink from these, but then they either have to really drop down the brightness or you just have to live with a bunch of burn-in, which I don't think any of us want. So this right here, as economies of scale and stuff start happening, might get a little bit cheaper, but for now, it's just for the ultra nerds. That said though, the ultra nerds are getting some really beautiful displays. Just like it was really beautiful that ASUS sponsored this video. Hit like, get subscribed, and just have a fantastic whole day.